the final integration process. So hopefully you spend a certain amount of time integrating on the integration days and not just socializing and having pancakes and swims and stuff. This is really where we bring together all the strands of everything we've done, and obviously the process has been happening for a little while, and we really anchor it, and there's that magic part where all the different strands just become one, and then you really take it into your being and integrate it in a way where you're embodying it enough and expressing it enough and feeling at one with it enough. It's not fully actualized yet because you haven't gone in the world and lived your life in the new way, but it's kind of really to the point where it's been integrating, and we're really going to consolidate that so that all the newness, all the expansion, the growth, the realizations, the new knowing, the healing, clearing all the stuff that you've done during this retreat, it's going to really be there for you to draw on and for you to be and express in your daily life as you come out of the retreat, which is really the big goal. This year there's the added goal of keeping growing with the letting go and embracing greatness and embracing as much of our greater potential as we can, and remembering the bigger picture, that it's not just about us, that we're also here to make a difference and clean up certain messes that need to be cleaned up, but also just take responsibility for the part that we need to play, however small, however big, in assisting humanity to evolve. And with the December 2012 date being only a couple of weeks away or so, that's another focus, to continue expanding with what we've been talking about and what we've been working on. So really this integration process that I'm going to do now is really just about you claiming all the gains that you've made, all the wisdom that you've reclaimed. We've obviously got a deeper understanding of the realization, integration, actualization process. We've done all the process on the 4 pillars of self-esteem and a deeper understanding of what those 4 pillars were, including that big one that was where worthiness was a big one around, we all equally worthy, yet we only as worthy as we choose to be and demonstrate to be in how we live our lives, that kind of paradoxical truth. And belonging was also a really big one for the group in this retreat. And we did that whole process with the childhood stuff and the foundation, all this foundation that we establish in our sense of identity and relating, all that we do in childhood and in adolescence, all the teenage years, and that process of transitioning into adulthood and what kind of adult we chose to be and to become at the time, and how much of that is still serving us or not as a foundation for the adult that we are now. Certain amount of growing up and maturing in that process. We worked also on the foundations at soul level, felt into our pillars at soul level and how different that was to the human being. And if there were some big gaps, then we had to look at what that was about. And we did a bit of a journey and felt into that sense of eternal journey. We expanded our consciousness and awareness to really gather some of these major impacts, marks on the slates along the journey that contributed to the kind of foundation that we're holding at soul level. And we also did some work on assertiveness from various angles. And with Linda, you did a lot of different work. There was around motives and relationships and relating, and that commitment to really take practical steps to really actualize the things that you're committing to change and the shifts that you're experiencing, and to, if you do one thing, but get it really happening and really actualize that, and rather than trying to do it all at once or getting lost in trying to do too many things, one step at a time. Just lots and lots of things you talked with Linda about, and I don't know it all because I wasn't always here. Well, I was not here physically, certainly. The impacts on our sphere and the responsibility that we have for the impacts of our energy, all that really grounded wisdom that is all part of how a master soul or a soul dedicated to mastery needs to really embrace and apply in order to grow and to take life in and turn it into love. So yes, quite a big retreat. For those of you who did Michael's Day yesterday, that was a whole other thing that comes into the picture as well, around ancient times and what happened in the ancient Egypt, Atlantis, all that stuff, and really getting into the feeling of that and clearing whatever is there that's still holding us back. So there's been really a bit of a theme through this retreat of working through the foundation to do a big spring cleaning with that 2012 date, to remove anything that's preventing us from stepping up, getting bigger, shining our light, and really just stop hiding and stop playing small and stop getting so caught up in the little dramas of our little lives, because, you know, within the greater scheme of things, it doesn't matter that much. It's not to be dishonored, it's not to be disrespected. You still need to take care of yourself as a human being. You are the caretaker of yourself as a human being and as a soul. You as the spirit is the caretaker. So you have to be the spirit and you have to do the caretaking. So that means you have to feel the feelings. You have to not judge those feelings that come up. You have to hold space for yourself. You have to hold appropriate boundaries for yourself. You have to just hold that clear space, and you have to go through all of that, but not get caught up in it, not lose yourself in it, not go unconscious in it. And that's really the, you know, one of the big keys for this this integration day, to really get that sense of proportion where your alignment and your centering and your awareness and consciousness as a spiritual being embracing the human experience is stronger in a way that's going to allow you to not get so lost and go on all the circuitous journeys all the time, and to also be much more efficient in running Cosmosis, in clearing your own stuff, as well as starting to grow and expand and reclaim the abilities that you have to work with energy to be able to run Cosmosis on your environmental body and on a bigger scale. That's not something that you decide you're going to do according to what you think is right in your mind or what you want to see happen in the world. That's something you just, you know, surrender to, make yourself available to, so spirit can work through you. And that's just, you know, then you as the human being get out of the way, and you as the greater spirit of which you are, just allow things to happen through you, which are in of and full of, in service to all that is. And if you're strong in your alignment and center and boundaries, and just don't get caught up in any of it, don't take all the stuff that happens personally, then you can, you know, become a clear vessel. No one's perfect, no one's completely clear, but it gets to a point where you're clear enough, and the stuff that isn't clear is not something that takes over you. It's not something you get triggered into. It's something you're able to kind of shelve or keep in check or master, so that it doesn't get in the way of you being love and turning life into love, and just being a force of love to be reckoned with on the planet, in your life to start with, and on the planet. So it's not about grandiosity, and it's not about playing small. It's just about letting go of all these things that we explored, the false identities, the self-concepts, that self-conscious core level, that, you know, all these deep beliefs that we have about ourselves that cause us to play small because we're self-conscious and we don't want to, you know, be ridiculed or be wrong, or all of these things. But at the same time, you know, you got to really, as you expand, you got to really watch that the ego, which includes the mind, the monkey mind is part of the negative ego, that the negative ego doesn't take hold of the expansion that's happening and kind of hijacks the energy, the new energy that's coming in, because that's where you start to become a bit too big for your boots, and a bit of a, what's the word I'm looking for? Well, anyway, you're taking yourself a bit too seriously and start to think that you're something very special and you're better than, and all of that. And because the energy gets hijacked by the negative ego, and then, you know, the negative ego gets pumped up. That's what gets expanded rather than just the spirit self. So for that to not happen, there's a few things you can do. Firstly is to stay aligned and centered in your spirit self, because we talked about the false centers. False centers is when you center, but where you're centering yourself is actually in the negative ego, in your personality. So it's like, oh, I'm in touch with my almost like false heart, my egoic heart, which is part of my personality that I've built. But you got to go deeper. You got to really connect when you center into that deeper connection with the source within and with the greater spirit of which you are. And so when you align all the way to the highest, clearest source that you can through the circle, and then down into the source core of the earth, that deepest heart of hearts of the earth, and then you connect with the deepest heart of hearts, that's your source connection within. When you stay aligned and centered in this as much of the time as you can, and when you're not, you catch yourself and bring yourself back to it, then that's going to be a first big step to make sure that all the growth that you're embracing and the newness that you're choosing in your life is actually going to come into this alignment. Because by being aligned and centered in the spirit self rather than being aligned and centered in the personality, you're basically just saying, this is who I am, this is what I am. And so all the energy that comes into you is going to go into this part of you, or to the real you, which is the spirit self. The other thing is, of course, that when there are windows of opportunities that open up for growth and awakening, realization, actualization, all these things, and certainly we are approaching a big one of these, like there hasn't been for many thousands of years, many thousands of years. The opportunities that are made available for you to let go of the old, to step through new doorways, to take new opportunities, to follow your heart's knowing rather than follow the safety zone or what makes sense according to the logical mind, are opportunities that you need to take. You know, you're going to be offered opportunities to grow, to have a go. And they might not be big things. They might be just little ways, to spend time with a certain person in your life in a different way. Or maybe it is about changing jobs or moving somewhere else. Or maybe it is about changing a relationship. So maybe it's about staying the same but doing everything in a new way. Just no major changes in your life. It can go anyway. It can be very small changes or very big changes, but the way you are, the way you behave, the way you express has got to be different. And because you're different, your experience will be different, because your experience is really completely dependent on how you're feeling within yourself. If you're feeling absolutely miserable, caught up in fear and shame and guilt, everything that's happening in your life is going to be coming through this experience of fear and shame and guilt, and that's going to be your experience, that your life is about that. When you're strong and aligned and centered and in love and wisdom, and even though you may be feeling all sorts of things, you remember that alignment and center, and you remember that all these feelings that are happening, they're just feelings, they're not who you are. Then your experience of life, even if the same events happen in your life, is going to be radically different. And those of you who have gone through some of these shifts before have noticed it's like, my life hasn't changed very much, yet everything's so different, because I'm different. Because we create our reality, we create our experience. And so, yeah, all these opportunities that are going to come our ways, they could be very tiny ones in the day-to-day life. It could be major life changes that will be up to you to surf the waves as they come. But you need to stay centered in your heart. You need to get in touch with that spiritual intuition, that sense of, oh, I get a feeling this is right. But it's not like the feeling of like, oh, yeah, that feels good, or that sense of relief. You know, you really got to watch the feeling good and that opportunity that comes along that offers like relief from all your problems and your issues, because that's the trap. That's not about love if that happens. You know, love, real opportunities of love will always challenge you. Because wherever you choose love, you will choose growth. So it will always challenge you to grow. And it will feel right rather than feel good. Very different. Something that feels right may not feel good at all, but it feels right. That thing that feels, oh, nice, that's not love. And as we shared, I forget when it was, some days ago, real love has a sort of, when you really allow a lot more love in your life and in yourself to go into a lot of places where love hasn't been for a while, it is a bit of that bittersweet experience, because the love highlights all the things within you and in your life that are not about love, that need to be refined or transformed or let go of or healed. And at the same time, the love also reminds you of all that time where you didn't have it. So they can often bring up grief or tears, and sometimes it can be tears of joy, but it's still kind of that bittersweet experience. So just be mindful of that as you take the steps forward in the next part of the journey. But yeah, so we really need to remember all the basics always: the clearing, the align and center, the breathe, the take action, make sure that you make things happen. The daily review is so important for that, just to make sure that you are actually not just like blah, 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 talking the talk but not walking the walk, but that you're actually demonstrating that you are working on integrating and actualizing whatever it is that you're working on. I hope that most of you would have made some sort of notes from the main things that we did at this retreat and that you got from this retreat. So good to revisit those, especially in the next 3 months or so, to make sure that you're continuing to grow with that, because it's so often that we have these realizations at retreats and then you'll keep working on like maybe 2 of the major ones, or a few of the later ones, and forget some of those you had earlier, and then you lose the transformation from these realizations because you haven't integrated. So good to revisit those regularly over the next 3 months, especially to make sure that you continue anchoring and integrating everything that has come your way and that you've opened to during this retreat. The nightly review as well, very useful. We talked about that when we did the soul process, in terms of really uploading at soul level all the learning from the day and all the realizations and healings and expansions from the day. So we take it with us on our internal journey. It's not something that we're going to lose at the end of this life because we didn't really take it with us as a soul. So yes, all of that, the daily clearing, the cord cutting, the stay aligned and centered and breathe, don't identify with it, just stay in your spirit self. Remember that you're here to take care of the human beings, and you're expressing through the human beings, and you need to take responsibility for that, but it is not the ultimate truth of who you are. It is just the experience you're having. You've stepped into dog poo, but that doesn't mean that you have to be defined by it. You just clean the dog poo off your shoe, and then you get on with your life. You can't be defined by this one incident or one experience or one feeling that you're having at any particular moment. It's just something that happened. Yeah, so it's all of that, all of these little practices and tricks that we need to remember, because they're the ones that are really going to help us through the moments where everything comes up, all the old stuff that needs to be cleared and released, to make room for the new, because the new cannot happen without making room for it. All these practices and all these things that we need to remember, the ABC and these awarenesses that we have, all of that is what's going to help us to pull through these moments where the old is coming up, screaming at us to choose it and to give in, because we have had an investment in it for so long. It's what's going to help us through the time where life throws out lots of challenges at us, or lots of opportunities that are really challenging us to step out of the comfort zone and really follow our heart rather than follow what the head thinks is the right thing to do, or what we've been taught, or what other people around us tell us that we should do. So it's really that process of navigating your way through the best you can, yet not being afraid of making a mistake, because mistake will happen. And like we said yesterday when we were using that stepping in dog poo metaphor, for not being defined by experiences that you had at some point in your life or in your eternal journey, that you make a mistake, well, I've stepped in dog poo again. You know how to clean it up. You've cleaned it up before, you clean it up, and then you get on with your journey again. It's no biggie. You can handle it. So it's just about taking responsibilities. And for those of you who are scared to get it wrong and make the mistake and so on, when you really are okay to take responsibility for the choices you make, it's kind of like you know that when you make a choice, or even when you don't make a choice, there's going to be a consequence, hopefully a wonderful consequence, and sometimes not, which is what we call mistake, is when we make a choice and the consequence is not about love and wisdom and harmony, even in the long term, and it's kind of like, oh wow, that wasn't really the way to go. But when you're willing to take responsibility for those consequences, and to just, that you can clean up, and you can make it right again somehow, turn it into a blessing or transform it, then there isn't that fear of making mistakes, because you're capable of handling the consequences of any choices you make, even if that choice was supposedly wrong, because you can easily handle it. Oh, well, it's like I spill my pot of paint, well, I get a mop or a sponge and I clean it up. It's no big deal. So it's like really breaking that myth around like, oh, making the wrong choice or making a mistake. It doesn't mean that you rush into any choice without giving it a second thought, without that sense of wisdom of getting a sense of what are the most likely consequences. Of course, that wouldn't be mastery, that would be foolishness. But don't let the fear of making mistakes paralyze you either. Yeah, having a go and not making the right choice is better than not making any choice at all. Karmically and in the eyes of spirit, it's better to have a go and get it wrong than not have a go at all. So, as human beings, the childhood and the adolescent stuff is really that thing that we need to take the wisdom and the gifts and the joy, all the nice good stuff from it that's going to make us better as a person, as a human being, that's going to make us kinder and more compassionate and stronger and having more of an understanding of the human condition, all of that. But we can't be defined by it. It's just the things that the lessons we went to, the classes we went to, the life lessons we went to. It's not who we are. So we need to discard as much of that as we can that is limiting us, and that is also limiting our expression. Because in a lot of cases, mastery depends to some degree on behavioral flexibility, the ability to consciously choose your behavior rather than feel that you have to behave a certain way because that's how you were raised, or that's just the way you are, or that's the way that you learned it, or that's the way you decided you were going to be when you were 18. So to be able to have that behavioral flexibility and to adjust your behavior and your conduct and your actions and your thoughts to the situation in order to obtain consequences of harmony and wisdom, in order to be able to do that, you need to not be defined by who you created yourself to be in the past or who other people taught you to be in the past. So as a human being, it's very important to clear that out of the road so that this human vehicle becomes really a malleable, flexible vessel to express the truth of your spirit through. And that's what it needs to be. It can't get in the way. And in order to not get in the way, it needs to be as unstuck and undefined as possible. It needs to be free to be whatever it needs to be to express spirit in the moment, whatever the truth of spirit is in the moment. At soul level, it is a very similar process, but within the scope of the eternal journey. Now, at soul level, we don't have that same sense of personality and in such a defined, strong, structural way as we do as a human being. However, there is things that we define ourselves by within the eternal journey that kind of give a taste of what we feel like at soul level. And that's okay to get all the learning and the wisdom, and we all have a different flavor, that unique taste and flavor, that uniqueness that we have within our own energy, in our very presence. However, that really needs to be the uniqueness of the spirit essence that we are, not, again, the soul getting in the way because it has a flavor that's really carrying all that baggage from lifetime of stuff that we're hanging on to, whether it's the grand victories and the grandiosity of other lives, or it's all the failures and the pain and the martyrdom and whatever else we experience in other lives. So it doesn't feel the same, but it's a very similar process. It's about just freeing yourself at soul level to know that all these people you were and these experiences and stories that you've been dragging on for so long, they need to no longer be something that gives you flavor, that defines you. They just need to be that thing that happened. And the soul, again, needs to become much more flexible in its expression and much more able to reflect clearly the flavor of the unique spirit that you are. So that can mean that you don't really know how to be anymore. You don't really know how to relate anymore. You just don't know how to behave. It's okay to sometimes play a particular role or put on a bit of a mask in order to relate, or in a work situation, for instance. You know, we all sometimes have to put particular masks on, or particular roles that we're playing in our life have to be embraced. But it's very important when you're doing that, that you're consciously choosing it, not from a place of fear or neediness, that, oh, I need this mask in order to hide, or in order for this person to like me because I need their approval. It's not like that. It's a mask or a role that you're going to put on for a short period of time for that situation in order to be able to do what it is you need to do because it feels right, because it's about love, because it's about wisdom, or because it is about creating harmony. Not being the peacemaker with egos. That's different than creating harmony. It's that higher good of all concerned. It's not something you decide from the head. It's not something the ego decides, oh, I know what's best for you and I'm going to make it happen for you. It's just something that feels in a moment to do something because it's going to bring harmony. Maybe not in the short term, but certainly in the long term into the situation. And then when that's happening, you know that the mask or the role you're putting on is not who you are. You know that, but you're playing that role, putting that mask on to do what you need to do in that situation. And then when you move on, you can take it off and not be in that role anymore, not wear that mask anymore. Now you got to watch that when you're doing that, it doesn't become inauthentic either. It's always, you know, it's like, oh, and be all like this, because that's really fake, you know. So even if you are to some degree putting on a mask or playing a particular role to serve a situation and the people involved, not for yourself, it's not about you, then it still to some degree is authentic to who you really are. You know, it doesn't violate your integrity, it doesn't compromise you. So lots of fine lines in being the true self. Keep clearing what gets in the way. Remember the bigger picture of who you are and what you're doing and what life is about. And know that you have to have that flexibility with your behavior and your expression. Yet at the same time, you have to be okay to, be a certain way, play a certain role, put on a mask, but it's still got to be to some degree authentic, and you still can't compromise your purity, your integrity, and your clarity. You can't compromise the true heart's knowing. And it's got to be really more about selflessness. The whole thing is a lot more about selflessness. It's not so much about what can I get out of this, or it's about me and my healing, and it's about me getting pleasure or staying in my comfort zone, or me and my pain. And a lot less of that would be great. A lot less of me, and my. A lot more of how can I remember to stay in the bigger picture while being really grounded and embracing my life as a person at the same time. It's kind of like head in the sky and feet on the earth. And to play my part. So I'm sure different ones of you have maybe some ideas of what you can do to support yourself to do that when you leave here and go back to your daily lives. Maybe it's a little list of things, practices, things to feel into and to remember and practice every day. Or maybe it's post-it notes, or maybe it's reminders on your phone, or maybe it's just really working on disciplining your awareness in a way that these things are always going to be part of your focus, even if it's in the back of your mind, even if it's just there, it's always going to be there, part of something you're practicing, and really it's going to be part of the lens through which you experience your life. It's like being the bigger self and being aligned and centered in the true center of the spirit self, and having that expanded perspective on what this life's about, what your eternal journey is about, and what, you know, what situation in the world we're dealing with. It's something that you take with you in every moment of every experience of every day. It's not something you forget about and you get home, it's like, oh, that's right, I'm, you know, a soul traveling through eternity. This is this life I'm having right now, and I've, you know, got so many things on so many levels happening, and the world is in this state, and I've got to do this in order to serve, and I've got to be love, and I've got to take life in, and then forget it when you get drawn into the daily things, especially at work. You know, sometimes we get drawn in this really mental focus of things that we do at work, and we just like don't bring ourselves to the plate. We just like forget. We just get drawn out of ourselves into whatever we're doing, and we not bring in that expanded awareness of ourselves into play. And so that's something that is very good to practice, because that's where you start to bring love and to bring spirit into everything you're doing. If you're not bringing that awareness of yourself as a greater spiritual being, and all the things that you've learned in this retreat as part of your being, you bring it to everything you do and everything you engage with and everyone you talk to, then you're not bringing spirit into every area of your life. You're not spiritualizing life. So that's really one of the basic steps to being able to bring love and spirit into the world, is you got to bring it as part of yourself in your life, in everything in your life. And so, you know, review that every day. How did I go with that? When did I forget? What caused me to forget? Did I get triggered? Or did I get distracted? Or, you know, is it a habit? Or was I scared too, in case people would react differently? Or maybe people did react a bit weirdly at first, and then so you got scared and you step back with it. And just notice what's happening, look into what's going on, clear it. Remember the prior commitment to love, prior commitment to being the highest, greatest self that you can be, and to bring love into this world and play your part. That's got to be stronger than your commitment to not upset your family or your friends, or you know, have people just not know how to be with you because they can feel something's different, although many people probably won't. Not getting caught up in the same little dramas that you tend to get caught up to, the things in your mind that goes round and round, the things you struggle with in your relationships or with your own feelings. Just remember the bigger picture, and make sure that every day, no matter what's gone on, no matter how well you've done or not well you've done, you come back to check into that. It's like the tuning fork, you know, you come back to retune your fork to make sure that you're still holding the note, vibrating with that note. So we all mature adults. We all, I'm sure, can work with our mentors, but also set some things in place for ourselves. Knowing how our schedule is and how we work and what works for us and what doesn't work, we can all design a certain program of helpers and practices and things that are going to help us to do that, because we want to hold as much as we can. It's not about holding on and choking the life out of these things that we've taken with us. It's about holding them in our being and keep nurturing them and feeding them and giving them love and giving them light, and just keep growing them, and then we can grow from there. So practical steps on the ground. Practice in terms of your energy and your awareness, and what you're doing with your energy and your awareness and your consciousness. And just stay connected with spirit, with upstairs. Just, you're not alone. You're not an island. You're connected. And you belong. And you can do this. You're capable of this. And you're a valuable part of the team. And you're worthy of being here with this team, and including the team upstairs. And you have your own unique gift to bring to the table that no one else can bring in the same way that you can. And that is all stuff that you can choose, because you are a self-determining being. You have free will. Use it well. You're not a victim to any of the patterns and fears that you carry or that other people throw at you. Be sovereign. Own yourself and own your space. Yeah, it's very important when you're using the mask that it's a very conscious decision. Okay, I'm going to be like that, you know, but I know that's not who I really am. I'm just doing that in service of the other person or the situation, and then I can drop it. But at the same time, I'm not being false. Yeah.
Not forget
And not forget to take the mask off at the end, yes.
Yeah. Oh, this felt good. I'll keep on this bit. Oops, forgot.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah, and then you got to peel it off later.
Yeah, yeah, you got to watch if you put those masks on that you don't start, you know, people like you or things are really working or it's feeling good that you don't then become attached to the mask. Very true.
But if you do, just like dog poo.
Yeah, if you do, then you just hopefully. Exactly. Exactly. That's where your practices are going to save your life. Yeah, and that's where your practices are going to save your life, because like if you do get caught up in something or you do get attached to the mask or you do lose it for a little while, because you're doing your nightly review and you're checking your alignment and centering and you know doing that checking in, tuning fork, making sure I'm still holding the note, all that stuff. This is what's going to show you where you're not, you know, and that's why it's so important to have these practices in place, because really watch when you're feeling, oh, really, I don't want to do it, or I can't be bothered, or I'm too tired, or whatever, because this is a negative ego putting energy into you not doing the practices, so you don't notice that you're starting to slide back little by little by little, and you're not noticing it because it's very sneaky, and then you're not doing the practices that are actually going to help you really, oh, crap, I've lost it a bit today, or I wasn't holding the note, like I can feel now that I'm tuning in, I wasn't, you know, the note went a bit sharp there, or and you know, oh my God, you know, I can really see I started to get attached to this or that, and that's where you can go, okay, learn from this, you know, great, okay, fantastic, because that's pointing the way to certain weaknesses I need to clear. All these little challenges when you're struggling a bit with the process, it can be really wonderful because that's pointing the way to all these little things that are going to try to trip you up. These are the things you need to clear to get out of the way of spirit. So it's actually really useful, all these little challenges and struggles you have on a day-to-day, because that's a saying, hey, red flag here, you got to clear this thing. Hey, red flag here, you got to clear this thing. So just have your practices in place and just, wow, fantastic. Another place where I'm struggling and I got some stuff to clear. Let's do it. And then do your best to do better the next day, and so on. So yes, so have a plan, put it into action. Remember, I'm this, I'm this, I'm all of it. I am all that I am, one with the universal mind, one with the source of all life. I am one with all life forms and they are one with me. I am love, I am light, I am truth, I am peace, I am life itself, I am. Lots of useful tools you have in your little bag. So good luck. Well, luck has little to do with it. Good practice, good integration. And actualization. Hopefully we will have a nice pickup full of radiant beings ready to do the work in the next approaching cycle. Lots of great spirits bonding together to make a difference. Here, here. Well, thank you.